Hey ladies, and welcome back to HauteUltraviolet. This is episode 4, and I know on my last episode I actually talked to you guys about career and how to find your perfect dream career. I want to actually give more insight into my own career, so this episode is breaking down my career for dummies. So, if you know me, you know, and like I told you in the previous episodes, I actually wanted to work in the business and finance sector and ultimately result in the fashion industry. So, just briefly, I wanted to go in this route because, first of all, fashion school was very expensive and I was not interested in taking out a lot of student loans and going into debt for fashion school. And secondly, I didn't see it fit for me to begin working in fashion, which was like if you just go right into a fashion role, usually those are low paying roles. And the same thing if you go into it as just being a model without having like your own money saved up and stuff like that, it could be very difficult. And you could just find yourself, like being like in the world, just in the world. And that's just not anything I ever wanted for myself. I'm actually like a really feminine girly girl, and I actually have always aspired to be a wife, and I always aspired to bring something to the table too. So for me, and also I never wanted to be like a huge burden for my family. So for me, when I thought about like my career and what I was going to do or how I was going to result in the fashion industry, I knew that for one, I was super fashionable. So beginning my career, like even when I was like in high school, first of all, I'm known to love fashion and I'm known to be stylish. I'm known to have the like most sleek weave hairstyle, and everybody know that I love fashion and beauty. And I show up very fashionable and beautiful and stylish and classy. So I'm known to be that person, and that's just how I grew up, and that's the woman I became to be. So when I was in high school, I was fashionable. When I went to college, I was still fashionable, and I did hair on the side. And by the time I landed my first professional role in the business sector, even in my office, I was known as like the fashionable, classy, stylish girl. And that kind of just was like that's my persona actually. So besides me working in business, I'm known to be fashionable. So when I launched my blog, The Fashion Corey, that was like a side hobby actually in addition to my business career, because I wanted to still be involved in the fashion industry although I was working in business, because I knew that through my career in business I would eventually result in fashion, because I would use the money to buy the fashion, which would get me noticed and in the spotlight and so on. So I worked in business, and then I went on to work in the finance sector. And working in the finance district, I was definitely around a lot more people. And everyone still knew me to be like the fashionable girl. Like I always had beautiful hair. I always dressed really nice. And I was always really classy and professional too, though. Sometimes I dressed like sophisticated for work, but sometimes I dressed casual, but still like it was very fashionable. So when I say sophisticated, like sometimes I will wear a blazer and pumps, but sometimes if I wear like a pair of flats and a blouse with jeans, I was still very classy and stylish. So after my work in the finance district and I went on to be a client liaison, I was still really fashionable. Besides me being fashionable, I look like a model, and I sew my clothes like I look like a model. And people just kind of always stuck with me. People would say like, you should be a model, and I would always be like, oh, thank you, thanks for the compliment, like telling me that I'm beautiful and all of those things. Like I get it a lot, and I know that I should be a model, and I knew that I would result in that. I didn't have a huge eagerness for it because I also really enjoy my career in finance. So working in my career in business in general. And I knew that I didn't really, like, I pictured myself, because also with being like a model, for example, you have to have like a portfolio. You want to have a history of working with photographers and all of these things. I didn't have that, and I really didn't have like the desire to build those relations. I am actually from Chicago, and while we do have photographers and things like that, it's not like the biggest city on fashion. So like my fashion was really just personal. This is how I like to show up and how I like to step out the house. And the fact that I happen to look like a model is just the beautiful woman that I was created to be. So I actually looked at my fashion desire as I can model for my own fashion brand. So once I open my own fashion brand, I would be the model, and that would be how I would start building my portfolio. And then if people wanted to hire me from there, then cool. But right now, it was important that I learn a solid career, because I still wanted to be a homeowner. I wanted to be a wife one day. I want to have kids. I want to build, and I want to start building my wealth, because time definitely does fly, and I just have always been a serious person that way. It's kind of how I was raised to be, especially like once I became adult age. Like my parents definitely told me, like, you want to start making a living for yourself. Like, oh my God, I remember the brutal day when my dad told me and my sister we have to pay our own phone bill. Like, we did not want to pay our own phone bill, but we had to figure out a plan. And we actually started paying our own phone bill. And even though I had like other things, like I was building my credit and things like that, the phone bill was something that he had always paid since we were like younger. And I think it was like when I think it was in 2017-ish when he started making us pay our own phone bill. And I was like, I just did not want to pay my own phone bill. But we did it, and yeah. So, like, yeah, that was one thing. So, like, from there, I realized, too, that, I have to start building, or, making a living for myself. So, I mean, I was already making a living for myself, but I realized then, like, my 401k is important, and things like that. Like, those are things that, like, having healthcare is in Illinois, you have to have healthcare. It's illegal to not have it. And I want good healthcare, and I want to be able to, like, provide for myself whatever I want. I don't want to be in a struggle, and I don't want to like always rely on my parents for help. So that's why I didn't see it fit for me to just hop into the industry as a fashion model, because you have to go to castings and you have to do all of these things. I just felt like I would be overwhelmed, and I would just be so miserable if I was broke. So I just couldn't like see that for myself. But I'm young, and I had a lot of fun and opportunity in the city of Chicago to be a career-driven woman and working in the business and finance sector. So in this role where I was working as the client liaison, again known as Fashionable, I'm working like in downtown on the magical Michigan Avenue. Like, so a lot of people are seeing me all the time. Like, I'm working in an infamous building. Like, a lot of people come there, and I'm attracting a lot of people because people are constantly seeing me, and I am a beautiful woman, and I do look like a model, even though I found I am not that tall compared to a lot of other women. Like, like model women, they are actually much taller than me. So it's like a lot of people that tell me I should be a model, they're, I guess because I have a really nice body, and I have a beautiful face, and I have a really brown golden skin. So people would say that I should be a model. But a lot of models are very much taller than me. Oh, I did wear heels a lot. So, I mean, I have a really nice walk too. So I guess it makes sense. It makes total sense. I know why, and I know that people felt like I should be a model. But my entry into the fashion industry would have been, however, like if like model or having my own fashion brand, either of those options would have been fine. But I knew that how I could do it myself without having to go through all of those things that it takes to become a model, I could definitely earn the money and build my wealth and then establish my own fashion brand, which was my plan. So with my blog, I think that I had also like came into contact with a lot of other fashion bloggers, and a lot of bloggers that was blogging with me back during that time have really grown their blogs a lot. And I kind of only did it like as a hobby because I did have this job and I worked full time, and I also like always was with my family. So, and then I had a boyfriend too. I'm an auntie. So my fashion blog was part time, or actually it was just a hobby, but I did have plans to grow it bigger. But then I also I stopped doing hair on the side and I stopped selling hair extensions, and I by 2020 I actually decided to launch my fashion jewelry brand where I modeled myself, and those pictures are still very neat and beautiful. They're on the Gleam No R page. So if you ever go to my Instagram, you'll see that I'm following Gleam No R, and you can see the pictures that I posted where I'm modeling the jewelry myself. And I also, but yeah, that was the first fashion. That's the first actual fashion business. So while I was working in the finance sector as a loan processor, I actually was able to use my paychecks to not just pay my rent, car note, help my family save, and also work on my credit. I was also able to fund to start Gleam No R, my fashion jewelry brand. And then after I stopped working Gleam No R and I actually ended my career in finance, I paused and I took some time to think about what I really wanted, because I actually told you guys like I was going to become a mortgage loan officer and grow my career into a mortgage loan broker, and then open my fashion boutique, which would have been like Gleam No R, but also selling clothing, like a real fashion boutique. But I actually stopped working and I actually ended Gleam No R too, and I had to take a step back to see what would be the best option for me, because like finance was not going to be working anymore for me. If you know me, I don't like talking about it really, but if you know me, I did experience like a network intrusion, and I just didn't feel safe because I felt like when things like that happen, like your identity could be exposed, and I didn't feel like my job requires you to be confidential, and I felt like my confidentiality was at threat. So I stopped. I decided that I'm not going to work in finance anymore, and that it was time for me to be my own business owner. But I was not sure if I wanted to do Gleam No R. Like Gleam No R was actually going through a process of relaunch, and I was going to have a whole new concept. But then I decided that I'm just going to stop working and I'm going to stop Gleam No R. And I actually came up with another brand, which was Love Loire, where I was going to sell like more high-end jewelry. But then I decided that that was going to be just not really achievable at that time. And I wanted to do a pearl. And while Love Loire would have really been the same thing as Gleam No R, I was going to sell like little black dresses in addition to the luxury jewelry. But I had some trouble there. So I decided to take some time and meditate and figure out what exactly it is that I wanted to do. And through the grace of God, prayer, supplication, literally meditation, God gave me the bright idea to start Légère USA, which is an athleisure apparel brand that I'm working on today. So I have went through a process of creating some designs and actually trying them out, like wearing them, leggings and t-shirts, and I have got a good idea of exactly what I want the like materials to be. The logo is so perfect. I have an entire business plan, and that is what's next for me. That is the business that I will go forward with, even though I do have a desire to collaborate with the fintech industry right now. I am like sending communications for things like that, but my ultimate goal is to have a storefront for Légère USA, my Athleisure apparel brand, and go from there. So as you can see, my career path has been very unique, and I knew it was going to be very unique from the very beginning. And I wanted to work in business and finance and establish myself, become established, so that then I can use my money and my wealth to get into the fashion industry and grow from there. As you can see, because I am a beautiful girl, I look like a model, I am really into fashion, I fashion blog. That's why people would know me. That's why, I could potentially be scouted, or I could potentially receive like some sort of deal where I work in fashion prior to becoming as established as I desire to be. But regardless, what matters is that I did have a secure job and I had money for myself as a grown woman. It's really important to have your own money. Even in a case like I've had times when I had boyfriends who pay for everything, but I still have to have my own money because that's just what you do as a grown adult. So I just never had a desire to just go right into fashion because I didn't have the savings. I didn't have like all of the money to, back me in a situation like that. But I knew that with business and finance, it was very promising for me to get into fashion because I could just use my income to pay for whatever fashion I needed or whatever way in which I would need to get to the fashion industry. So I wanted to share this because I wanted to just clarify that for any person that is listening or that is just wondering, and to give you an idea of how you too can do something like do this to fund that, because it's really important that you establish yourself as a woman, especially if you live in a big city like I did. Like living in Chicago, you definitely want to have your own money and forms of transportation, even though it's a metropolitan city and it's also metropolitan looks. So you will really be captivated by the city and wanting to go here and go there and spend this and buy that. And still you have to, provide for yourself every day. So it's really important that you don't, just be waiting around looking for a deal or, whatever it is. Sometimes people have to go through. You want having a career, having a solid income, a solid job is what's up. And these days, people can, work so many. There's so many different avenues, and even then, it really was too. But I was really focused on my job and business and fashion, business and finance, and that is the way in which I decided to get into fashion. So that is my career for dummies explained. And if you have any questions, any comments, or just want to share your thoughts, feel free to leave a comment. Please like, share, and subscribe this video, and I'll talk to you guys on the next episode.